It was just another ordinary day at Sterling Technologies, a leading global corporation known for its groundbreaking innovations in the tech industry. The open office layout buzzed with the sound of keyboards tapping, phones ringing, and employees chattering away in the background. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, but what no one knew was that the man who walked into the building that day, disguised as a homeless man, was none other than Robert Greene, the company's CEO. Robert had been watching the behavior of his employees for months, and something about the corporate culture just didn't sit right with him. Sure, the company was highly successful, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his employees were more focused on personal gain than on creating a workplace founded on respect, compassion, and unity. As the CEO, he made countless decisions that impacted thousands of lives, but he couldn't ignore the glaring issue that had been growing: the treatment of people outside the company, those less fortunate. So, he devised a plan. He would disguise himself as a homeless man, with tattered clothes, a scruffy beard, and a fake cardboard sign that read "Anything helps." He would walk into his own company unnoticed and observe how his employees treated him. He had no idea that what he would uncover would change the course of his company forever. As Robert walked into the building, he felt a sense of nervous excitement. The weight of his decision hung over him. His appearance was disheveled, his face unshaven, and his clothes were a stark contrast to the crisp suits of the employees around him. Most people didn't pay him any mind, just like he expected. They were too busy with their own lives to notice a man who looked like he had fallen through the cracks of society. But, as he shuffled through the lobby, he couldn't help but overhear the conversations happening around him. Some employees were talking about the latest promotions they were working on, while others were gossiping about the newest hires. But no one acknowledged him. No one even looked his way. It was as though he didn't exist at all. Robert's first test came as he made his way to the break room. He stood near the door, clutching his cardboard sign, and waited. After a few moments, a young woman named Rachel entered. She was sipping her coffee, her phone in hand, and didn't seem to notice the man standing by the door. "Excuse me," Robert called out quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Could you spare any change? I haven't eaten in days." Rachel looked up briefly, her gaze flicking over him before she looked away dismissively. She didn't break her stride and without a word walked past him. Robert watched as she disappeared into the break room, her mind clearly elsewhere. He felt a pang of disappointment, but he didn't let it show. The test was only just beginning. Robert spent the next few hours moving through different parts of the office, silently observing his employees. It was clear that the majority of them either ignored him or treated him as invisible. Some people whispered in hushed tones about him, making assumptions about his situation. Others laughed at his appearance, some even pointing him out to their coworkers. But there were a few moments that gave him hope. Around lunchtime, Robert sat in the lobby, watching as the employees filed in and out. He was hungry, but he knew he had to wait. After all, this was the test. As he sat there, an older man named George, a janitor, walked past. He was pushing a cleaning cart, his expression focused on his work. But when he saw Robert, something in his eyes softened. "Hey, you okay, buddy?" George asked, pausing for a moment. Robert looked up, surprised by the concern in his voice. "I haven't eaten in a while," Robert replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't have much. Can you spare something?" Without hesitation, George took a sandwich from his lunch bag and handed it to Robert. "You look like you could use a meal," George said. "Here, it's not much, but it's something." Robert took the sandwich, overwhelmed by the kindness. George didn't look down on him. He didn't make assumptions about his situation. He simply offered help. For the first time that day, Robert felt a sense of warmth. "Thank you," Robert said softly, his voice full of gratitude. "No need to thank me," George replied with a smile. "We're all human, right?" As the day wore on, Robert's frustration grew. He had seen enough to understand that many of his employees, the ones who had built the company's success, were not as compassionate as they appeared. They had become too focused on their careers, their paychecks, and their personal ambitions. The kindness they showed in the workplace did not extend beyond the walls of their office. But it was also clear that a few individuals, like George, had a different perspective. They still understood the importance of empathy, kindness, and human connection. And it was that realization that hit Robert the hardest. By the time the day was over, Robert knew what he had to do. He needed to change the culture of his company. It wasn't enough to just be successful in business. The employees of Sterling Technologies had to care about something more than profits. They had to care about people, the ones who worked alongside them, and the ones who had nothing to give in return. That evening, Robert returned to his office and began to draft an announcement. It would be a company-wide message, but it wouldn't be a normal memo. This time, it would be personal. The next morning, employees filed into the office as usual, completely unaware of the surprise that awaited them. At precisely 9 a.m., Robert sent out a company-wide email. It was a simple message with the subject line, "A change is coming. Good morning, everyone. I want to start today by sharing something personal with you. As many of you know, I've always been proud of the work we do here at Sterling Technologies, but I've come to realize that there's something missing in our company culture. We've built a successful business, but we've forgotten the most important thing: empathy." Robert continued, explaining how he had disguised himself as a homeless man the previous day to see how employees treated those less fortunate. He spoke candidly about the apathy he had encountered, but he also praised the few who had shown him kindness. He then revealed the truth. "For the past 24 hours, I've been among you, watching, learning, and listening. I've seen how we treat those around us when no one is watching, and I'm not proud of what I've discovered." The email continued with a promise to overhaul the company culture, making it more inclusive, empathetic, and focused on helping others, not just clients but employees and the community as well. Robert ended the email with one simple statement: "We are not just here to build technology, we are here to build a better world." The email sent shockwaves through the company. The employees were stunned, some felt guilty while others were confused. But one thing was clear: Robert's message had struck a chord. Over the next few weeks, things began to change. Department meetings now included discussions on company values, and leadership focused on building a more compassionate and inclusive environment. There were company-wide charity drives, volunteer opportunities, and internal programs designed to help employees who were struggling, whether financially or personally. The company culture was no longer just about innovation and profit. It was about people, helping them, supporting them, and ensuring everyone had an equal opportunity to succeed. Robert's decision to disguise himself as a homeless man had opened the eyes of the entire company, and slowly but surely, Sterling Technologies began to transform into a company that not only led the industry, but led with heart. A year later, Sterling Technologies was recognized for more than just its market share. It had become a model of corporate responsibility, winning awards for its commitment to social impact, diversity, and employee well-being. Robert stood before his employees at the company's annual meeting, and he could see the pride in their eyes. They had come a long way, not just in terms of business growth, but in their personal growth as well. "We are here to make a difference," Robert said, his voice filled with emotion. "And together we have." The applause was deafening, but Robert knew that the real change had come from within. The company wasn't just successful because of its products. It was successful because of its people. And that was the legacy he had hoped to build.